Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock-steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show. Hey, magic makers, have you ever looked at your skin and you're like, God, it's so dry now. It just reacts to every single thing. I haven't changed one thing. I'm using the same products, the same routine, but your skin is like, not feeling it. And in this episode, I speak with Dr. Mimi Vega, and she talks exactly about maybe we might be doing too much when it comes to our skincare. I know that maybe we're just cleaning it too much. And so that's quietly wrecking our skin. Our perfect routine, that might be the problem. And what your skin actually needs, and I was shocked, it is way less than what we've been told that we need. So once you hear this, I want you to go in the bathroom, look at your kitchen counter, look in that medicine cabinet, and say to yourself, I might be getting rid of some of these products. So if your skin feels dry, sensitive, or just like you don't even know what the heck it is right now, this is the episode that you want to listen to. All right. I want to thank Miss Clara B. Lee from the Philippines. I've gone international, y'all. She leaves a great review here for me. She says so many valuable health tips that you can learn from. It is a must listen. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate every single review that comes my way. It tells me that I'm giving you the information that you're looking for, the information that you're yearning for. I know that when I was in my, perimenopausal journey, I just was like, where can I turn to? What information can I find? And I'm grateful that I am giving that to you. These reviews mean the world to me. They light me up that I'm able to help you in any way possible. So if you are listening to this, do me a favor, head over to iTunes and leave me a review. If you're like, girl, I don't know how to do that, reach out to me. I will help you get that done. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, magic makers. Today I am interviewing Dr. Mimi Vega, and I'm really excited because I don't know if I think the term microbiome has gotten a lot of press, but we don't really ever talk about what the hell it really means. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but your body roughly has the same number of bacterial cells as human cells, and a huge amount of them live on our skin. Most of us think when we hear microbiome, we think gut, but most of them live on our skin. And we have been taught to scrub the crap out of our skin to fight bacteria. But what if what we're doing is exactly what's wrecking our skin in this over 40 time? So today I brought on Dr. Vega. We are going to talk all about the skin microbiome, women's health. She's a PhD. She is a smart lady, PhD in biotech science, microbiome, barrier biology expert, and the real deal when it comes to dealing with this stuff. So if your skin ever feels dry, itchy, reactive, or you just don't know what's going on, I'm raising my hand. Listen in. This episode is just about for me as it is for you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's quite an introduction. Thank you, Kim. It's very, very exciting to be here.
Yeah, when your folks approached me for the show, I was like, microbiome on your skin? What? Like, I never even thought about it until they raised it. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I guess if you think about our skin is the biggest surface of our body. So why wouldn't it have its own kind of microbiome or some type of protective layer over it?
That's exactly it, right? And you did a great introduction comparing with the gut. We've considered the gut even before we had all the data on the science around the gut microbiome, right? But it took, the computer powers and 2010, 2015 to actually dig deeper. And then for me to make the leap into the skin, because I've been curious around the skin my whole life. It started with skin issues, and then I became a chemist. And then, I went deep into the microorganisms without knowing if they would be the solution to the problem. At first, I was really just looking for a coherent solution, a solution that made sense for the skin. And I couldn't find it. I was using microorganisms to actually get natural enzymes, for as an ingredient, natural ingredient. And then I went on, my way, got my experiences because I felt something was missing.
Yeah.
And it's really when I ended up, I did full circle, lots of years in oncology and then in immunology. And then we were discovering all the connections, between health and the gut microorganisms and being passionate about the skin. I was, okay, what's going on with our skin? And like you said, there's so many, we have to wrap our mind around the fact that there's more genetic code, so more microorganisms on our body, living with us in symbiosis, supporting us, protecting us, then we actually have cells with our own DNA, right? So it's a whole new science. There's lots of benefits to have a healthy microbiota, whether it's in your gut or on your skin.
So let's take a step back. So for most people who don't know what a microbiome, either on your skin or in your gut, what is it in plain English?
So it's all the microorganisms. Yes, a lot of bacteria, some viruses, some little bugs even. People are like, what? Yes, we have quite a few tiny living cells and some non-living like viruses that composes our skin microenvironment. So what does that mean? That they live on our skin, they feed off our sebum, what we produce, and they benefit the skin because they actually prevent from what we call dysbiosis. Bio being the microorganism, the biological material, and dis meaning disbalance. So when these microorganisms, they become disbalances, either because there's not enough of them or because there's one type that takes over the normal balance, then we have troubles like acne, like eczema, rosacea. They're all symptomatic of a disbalance in our microbiota. So when we feed the microbiota and we keep it healthy and we protect it, because we have some activities that actually strip our microbiota, like over cleansing and things like that. We can talk about, specifics later, but, when we protect the microbiota, well, it actually protects us from these disbalances. And it even protects us from premature aging because it's a natural filter. It starts like the blue light, the pollution, it's the first filter, the first armor that we have. It protects the skin, which protects us, right? So yeah, we want a healthy microbiota. And contrary to what we've been saying with our hands during this pandemic that we just went through, we wanted to cleanse because these microorganisms, we could contaminate other people with our hands, but we're not going to do that with our face, right? Unless we go rubbing around. So, we're good.
Yeah. And I think if you were rubbing your face on someone, they'd be like, can I help you?
Your microbiota for yourself, please.
Exactly. So, most people, when we hear bacteria, we immediately we're like, we need to wipe it all out. So why exactly do we need this bacteria?
Because like I said, it protects the balance of your skin. If you look at your skin, and I have a few analogies, they're not perfect, but you may understand better. let's look at all the microorganisms that live on our skin. And remember, there's a lot of them. Like it's millions per inch square, like trillions really per inch square. So all of these, like they work together and they communicate and they, like they keep themselves balanced. But some of them are a bit opportunistic. So if they're left alone, they take over, and we don't want that. Even, for some that are good in some instance, the ones that are the most efficacious at filtering UVs are those that create acne when in other conditions. So, they're all good, but it depends on the balance. So if we compare these microorganisms to a class of teenagers, right? Where the class is full, there's always a few that are, like a more active, let's say, but, like the group keeps, like them in control. Then there's a special class. Everybody goes, to this visit, but the few in the class that are too loud usually, right? So they kept, they're not allowed to go. So they're kept in the class, but everybody else went. So what does happen, with these three? Like they will create a a mess, likely. Like they'll be very active, and well, it's exactly what happens with our microorganisms. If we wash them, those that remain, because you're not going to wash everything, there's going to be a few remaining. And likely it's going to be those that are acne related, because they hide in the pores and they don't need necessarily oxygen, and they need the lipid that's in your pores. So that's why they hang out there, But the others that are actually balancing them out, they'll be gone. So they will leave, like the space to those to take over. And then you have a disbalance, and then you get a breakout of acne. Eczema is a similar pattern. Eczema, you get an irritant, and because you don't have enough of those microorganisms, because you wash them away, or like you didn't care for them, well, then the yeast, so they're like microorganisms that are a different type of microorganism. The yeast will kind of take over, and then you'll get these patches that stay and stay. Whereas if you had like a very healthy microbiota, it would just like take a few days, sometimes hours, and then it would resorb itself naturally. So that's why we want a healthy and solid microorganism.
So it's interesting. So, you're saying that for some contributors to acne is just some of the organisms that are living on our skin. But for so many years, we were told that acne was, one, stop touching your face, two, chocolate. There were so many different foods that were the cause of acne. But now, based on what we've learned over the years, is the organisms on our skin that are getting having a little bit more of a party than we would like them to have.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so counterintuitive, because we've been brainwashed to believe that, acne skin is a dirty skin, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, and honestly, I have a story about this. My mom growing up, she's kind of skipped a generation for me. She had me quite late. And she grew up on the farm and then moved to the city in the 50s, right? So, and she used to tell me, I don't understand, because we were trying to resolve my issue, my skin issue. And we didn't have acne when I was young. And as a teen, I was like, yeah, Mom, you didn't have acne as a
right.
Yeah,
and you also walked uphill to school. I get it.
Yeah. And then I am, 10 years ago, sitting in a conference room, and we're talking about the microbiota, and they're presenting this study on this tribe in the Amazon that has no acne, almost little, like nothing. They actually have no eczema either. They don't have any modern conditions, but they also have more because they studied the skin microbiota specifically, and they compared it to many different populations, and they realized that they had stronger microbiota, and they even had some microorganisms that we no longer had in our population because we sterilized them and we killed them off, right? And they had like super skin. So I was, oh, well, maybe my mom was right, like the more, and it's been now shown that the more urbanized we are, the worse our skin gets.
Well, and that's an interesting take because like nowadays, we all have like the beauty talk, right? And so now it's all layering serums and potions and all sorts of things on our faces. And so from what I'm hearing from you in just our like first, 10 minutes of conversation, that's bullshit. We shouldn't be layering all the stuff on our face the way, the beauty people are telling us to do it.
But no, it's certainly not the way I see it. And, like we've been conditioned to see the skin as very unique. Like we've been taught, oh no, you have this skin type, so you should do that. And then, and I was looking for a solution for myself, like throughout my life. And I would end up having like recipes. Okay, in the morning you do this.
Yes. And it's a 20 step.
Week, and sometimes it would resolve. But then, something else would come back. And I used to cycle between acne and eczema because it was either, like breaking out or irritating.
Yeah.
Like, so it was like a complete, like cycle. And when actually I discovered the skin microbiota and I kept on digging and I realized, oh my God, this is the element that we weren't considering, right? And I had to do a complete shift of the way that, we had been conditioned. I wanted to focus now on not the symptoms or the differences between your skin and my skin, but what is common to everybody,
yeah.
Right? The skin works, it's an organ. Your heart, my heart works the same.
Right.
The skin is the same. It's an organ. So we've been, I think, focusing on completely the wrong stuff, just the symptoms. The symptoms are great because they tell you what's going on.
Right.
They tell you even what's going on inside. So they really guide you as to what you can do, like to align your complete body health. But in terms of your specific skin, the root functions of the skin is what we should consider. And when we start doing that, we realize that there's one major shift in the month, and especially for women, it's our hormonal shift.
Yeah.
There's lots of factors, that influence the skin.
Right.
But there's one cycle that we haven't been considering. I think you consider it in your, in your approach to health but we've never considered it for the skin. And we know that the skin breaks out once a month. The skin is oily, it's oilier sometimes, or it's drier some other times. There's external factors, but also there's internal factors. And yet we've been guided to take these products. Well, yeah, but my skin changes all the time. How are these products going to be good for me, right? So by taking the approach that the skin works a certain way, and it needs a balance of these ingredients that the skin produces on a daily basis, but that we strip away because we cleanse, because we have activities, we expose to pollution, all of these elements. So how do we compose with all of that? Well, we adjust. And when we understand that the skin at the core, produces sebum for certain functions for its skin microbiota, and produces salts for other function, well, then we can adapt the salts and the oils so that depending on what your skin needs, and it varies depending on your hormones and other factors, well, then you can adapt super, easily. It becomes very intuitive. And then you kind of empower yourself to be, okay, like I feel good now. My skin's comfortable. And then you empower your skin to actually do what it's super great at doing, which is protecting itself and you, right? So
And you've just literally like turned everything that I'm sure everyone, like someone just drove off the road because you just turned all the beauty tips we've ever gotten in our entire life. You just like crumbled them up and threw them out the window. Because for many of us, like you said, we've all been like categorized. You have dry skin, you have oily skin, you have combination skin. Or I see you and I'm like, oh, Mimi has such beautiful skin. What are you doing? And never taking into account what my skin actually is. And so that is just like such a radical approach, because we all have our own different style and clothing, but we always adapt someone else's skincare routine, thinking it's going to magically like change our skin.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be magically changing your routine to understand how it works. I've had people tell me, oh my God, this changed my life.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it just brings peace of mind. And even for myself, like sometimes I wake up and like my skin like has a rash and I'm like, oh, like I used to be, okay, what do I do with this? I have to add something. And,
yes.
And now I just don't know, just balance it out, let it do its thing, and it's going to resolve. And it resolves. It's, like it's really, really empowering to just let go, actually.
Right. Yeah. And I think about like the women who are listening here, and if you're anything like, any woman listening, you're going to open up your medicine cabinet and you're going to have a shit ton of stuff that you might have used one time, two times, blowing the dust off of it because you thought it was going to be some magical thing and it didn't do well for your skin. And so I love this. And especially now, and it's the perfect, kind of pivot here, especially now as we approach midlife, right? So we talked about how there's this delicate balance between having enough oil, having enough salt, and like, what is that balance for you? But then we talked about that monthly hormone, but now here in midlife, it could be an hourly hormone surge that could be happening to us right now. And most of us, when we think hormones, we don't think skin, right? I know for myself, I think about, I've now have really dry skin, and that never used to be the case. I now have like kind of patches of dryness now, where before it was kind of everything was pretty fluid, but that doesn't happen every month. So it's now finding, like you said, that like that season of like, where am I?
Yeah, and it's confusing, and even so, even more in perimenopause, because like you said, it's all over the place. And honestly, I think the people that connect more with what I do are those that are specifically in that period, because they've tried a lot of products.
Yes.
Some of them, and it was my case, you try, a product sometimes just for one ingredient.
Yeah.
And new ingredients come out every month.
Mm-hmm.
And I get asked all the time, oh, is this ingredient good? It is, but it's not enough. And, you're going to need to balance with X, Y, and Z. And, so is it a salt, or is it an oil, or is it a pre or postbiotic? So people don't know, but the industry is based on new ingredients all the time that will do the magic trick. And the worst is that it's good ingredients. But it's always changing and we can't balance it, right? So you come at this period of your life where, one, you're busy, you want to be worrying about something else than your skin. You've been trying a bunch of products, and some worked for a while, some didn't work at all. And now you're just confused and you decide, okay, I'm going to go back to the basic and do nothing. And sometimes it works better than all of these products in your cabinet. So by switching the mindset and like really understanding how it works, and it seems super complicated, but you can really see it, like I said, as like a 3-barrier ecosystem. There's the barrier of the microbiota, and that barrier you just need to protect and feed.
Yeah.
Like there are tips to, protect it and feed it. And there's some ingredients, there's an environment, there's a pH, but you can that fairly easily by letting go of the double cleansing and exfoliation and all of that. Yes, you need to cleanse at the end of the day because you've been exposed to pollution. You went to the gym, you sweat, you put on makeup, sunscreen. You all gotta take that off, right? Because it's not great ingredients for your skin. So you take it off all at the same time, and with a gentle cleanser, so that it kind of protects a bit your microorganisms. But some will be washed away, right? But still, you'll protect most of them, and then you'll restore what you just took out, which is, the salts and the oils, and then your skin will do the rest. And by understanding these other two layers, which are the oils, which is a mixture, there's no one oil that's perfect, because there's no oils that, like vegetable oils, that are supplementing your skin that is complete. So if you mix a few oils, you'll get a profile that resembles more closely the sebum. Evidently, if you're someone that's younger, that produces a lot of oils, you'll want to make sure that you're not taking occlusive oils, because they tend to plug the pores. But even teenagers, if they wash, they need to put back some oils, because they'll stress the glands, right? And then, so this is for the oils. And for the salt, it's really like to keep the water in your skin, because this is how the skin can function optimally and do its natural exfoliation, the cell turnover, all its function are done with the proper water in the skin at a right pH, like lightly acidic. So by giving these salts, and we know them, like hyaluronic acid, fabulous salt that keeps the water in your skin, PCA, all the what they call in the industry the NMF, which are natural moisturizing factor that the skin produces, but because they're loose on your skin, like you strip them, like you lose them in the water, like even just washing without water, without cleanser, will wash away these salts. So you want to replenish and restore your skin. So by understanding that, you need to cleanse because you want to remove these contaminants, but you need to restore, and then let your skin do the rest.
So now you talked about oils, and I remember I heard someone years ago talking about washing. Instead of, most people, we think of soap, we think it's get all soapy and sudsy and it's going to do its job. But I also heard someone talk about washing with oils. Now, is that just based on what your skin requires at that moment? Or is there something kind of more beneficial to washing with the oil versus washing with some type of sudsy soap?
My approach, I say, the emulsion is better because the contaminants, they don't necessarily dissolve in oils, right? So there are two big groups of molecules.
Right.
There are those that dissolve in water and those that dissolve in oil, right?
Yeah.
And there are some molecules that dissolve in both, but they're rare, right? So if you really want to take off everything, you need an emulsion that does both, that takes off all the water and the oil molecules that are, dissolved in the, that can get trapped in that emulsion. That being said, I say, if you don't have a cleanser like handy like that, use water.
Yeah.
But oil would be the same as water because you only have one side of it, but you will need to remove most of the oil after that. And removing the oil with water is not that easy because the oil doesn't dissolve in water, right? When you rinse your skin just with water, the oil stays, right?
Right.
So for me, I think it's an extra step that is not needed. But it's not such a bad approach. It's not super bad for the skin. Like I've developed this approach of the good, the bad, and the wasteful. I would put that in the wasteful,
Yeah.
because, like it's not doing wrong, but it's an extra step because you will need to remove that extra oil that may not be, balanced for, like for supplementing your skin in terms of the oils, right?
Right. And so, we talked about how hormones, at this age are definitely impacting how your skin is behaving. Now, is there any type of damage that stress might be causing to your skin? Because I know I preach to so many of my ladies that at this age, we can't manage the stress that we were able to manage back in the day. And so do we see any impacts of stress in the skin microbiome?
That's a very good question. I will say yes.
Okay.
I don't think there's direct studies studying, and I'm going through my mind. There's no direct studies studying the impact of stress, because the impact on your microbiome is long term. It's not. The biggest impact you can have on your microbiome is by stripping it, washing it. The stress would be, a long-term effect. It would be very difficult to evaluate. That being said, the stress affects everything, right? Because, well, you know this more than anybody probably, but cortisol, the hormone that's produced when you're stressed, especially chronic stress, that we tend to not manage so well, especially around perimenopause, has an effect on your hormonal, like reproductive hormone system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it decreases most hormones even more than, and I think this is why it's such a big impact, because our hormonal system tends to be decreasing in quantity in that period, even if there's bumps and everything, overall it's decreasing. And if on top of it we have the stress, it decreases the hormones even more, and that stresses the skin for sure. The skin loves our reproductive hormones. We're glowing when we're having, them all. We're breaking out at the end of the cycle because everything's dropping. It's like a clear correlation. So, of course, there's an effect on your skin. We can manage the stress. We just need to be more intentional about it than we used to, because, yes, our system needs it. But the correlation is more on the skin than it is on the skin microbiome.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what are some of the biggest skincare lies that women over 40 were still believing? We're the people, we grew up using Seabreeze and Noxzema. And so what are some of the lies that we are still believing?
Well, the cleansing for sure, like you mentioned it, this is, in the morning, you don't need to cleanse, to do whatever, your skin is clean. It didn't get dirty during the night. So that's one thing you can do to also protect your microbiome. If you need to refresh yourself, just, fresh water, very little, you tap, and that's it, and then you restore. So that's another thing. Exfoliation, you don't need it to exfoliate. Your skin can do it. It's actually micro wounding. You don't need to encourage your cell turnover. Your cell turnover will get done. It actually disrupts your natural cycles of cell when you actually scrub off the top layers. So yeah, less is better, definitely, in that space.
So do you do see people saying you should get a facial? So should you get a facial, or is that just more of a nice, it's like massage kind of thing?
That's exactly what I would have said. So I think the mindset is super important. I used to get facials every season. I needed them. Extractions, I had, like when I developed my products for my daughter initially and myself, I wanted to look as young as possibly possible, like, and I didn't want to break out, and like I wanted it to, everything, so it took a few iterations, but once I got it right, of course I was testing my own product, right? I use my own product every day since. I haven't gone back. I miss the person.
Right.
I miss the person. She was great, and like it would be a moment for myself.
Right.
But you can get moment for yourself. You can get a full body massage instead, or there's other things you can do for your mindset and yourself, or just get a facial massage, which I think would provide a lot of benefit because it increases circulation, and but the less you touch your skin, or you're aggressive on it. And I talking about aggression, like cleansing is aggressive, exfoliation is aggressive. Even, like what you sleep on can have an effect on your skin, like be super gentle and, don't pick it. And the picking is not even because of microorganism. It's because you're touching and you're disrupting the zone.
Right.
That's, like it's the picking that's the worst, like. Anyway, there's another myth around this because, like I'm sure you've been to, facial, and then, like your skin breaks out a week after, or, like it's totally normal. You're getting rid of toxins. No, it's because you interacted and you disrupted everything, like, so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think, so now, as you said, it's just more of a luxury. If it brings you joy, but you're not doing anything more amazing for your skin by getting a facial. And so I really like the adaptive skincare philosophy that you just talked about. And so now, do you have your own skincare line?
I did develop it. Yes, I did
Nice.
develop a skincare. And I realized that I needed to do it because nobody would, like as much as when I got out of university, I was like, okay, there's something missing and the big labs are going to do it. And, who am I to do something? When I dived into the skin microbiome and I understood, oh my God, like, and I start putting pieces together. I start by, like I said, mapping everything, the good, the bad, and the wasteful. The good, like I knew what they were, like to feed the barriers and, like the microorganisms, and to make sure the salts were the right one and the profiles of oils, like, so that was good. And then I did the bad easy, like now it's, it's known, endocrine disruptors and, all these irritants, allergens, and, like, so this was pretty straightforward. There's a few ingredients people are like, oh, but I use this. It's short term, it's good, but it's irritant long term, like, so there's this, but then it was the wasteful, because there's a few ingredients that we pay a lot of money for that the skin doesn't really use, right? It's not bad. Like I said, it's, some are proteins and they're, like they're not bad, but they don't provide the benefit that we pay the money we pay for, right?
Right.
So these were, like a bit more complicated to, to make sure, because there's so many studies out there looking at the different ingredients, and you can find everything to prove an ingredient great and the same one bad, right? So you really have to go that deep into the methodology and the testing and, so, mapped this all out and created a system that had everything that the skin uses. And then you don't need to rethink your routine, right? So I start with these and I thought, okay, let's put it all together. And obviously, I was still conditioned by this, like acne-prone skin, mature skin, like, and my system wasn't working. And I was like, oh, well, it should be working. Why isn't it working?
Right.
And it's when I realized, okay, I need to separate the oils from the salts, and then I can balance. So I've put into two products like the 35 ingredients that work together that, like in the skin. I mean, 35 ingredients because there's 4 types of oils that provide the profile I wanted.
Right.
There's, like all these salts and the prebiotics and the postbiotics and the pH, like all together. And then, like I have 2 products that I use together at the same time. And then you adjust depending on how you feel your skin. So my 2-step system, I say as a joke, is feel your skin and mix the proportions that your skin will need. And that's it. And at first, it's very uncomfortable for people because listen to your skin. I don't know how to do this.
Would you still like do 1, 2, 3?
Like, so, well, does it feel tight or does it feel oily? That's it,
Right.
Like, and then you balance as you go. It becomes very intuitive, and that's it. You just can worry about something else.
And I think as you get older, you realize like we're done with complicated. I don't need complicated anymore. Like been there, done that, and got the T-shirt for the complicated. So I personally am all about the simple. And can we get it in the United States as well?
Yes, online. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And guys, we will link that in the show notes. So that way, if you want to try this adaptive skincare approach, the 1-2 punch, if you will, we have it for you. And I really like that. And so if like a woman was to only change like 3 things this month in her skincare or her just overall approach to her skin, what would you recommend?
One, like we mentioned it multiple times, stop over cleansing. Like especially as we age, we produce less sebum.
Yep.
So, like we want to protect it. Be careful of the products you use. And I'm not only saying the skin products, there's also detergents, there's also, cleansing product. There's a lot of irritants. And it's dose related. What I'm saying is that the more you use something, at first it may not create an irritation. You think you're fine with it. And after a few times, you develop a rash. You keep using it. It leads to eczema and you don't know how to get rid. Like sometimes it's just a conservative, like in it that creates that rash. The more products you use, evidently, the more chances you're exposed to an ingredient that's going to be irritating. So less is more. And which ones I will say? I would say sleep well. Sleep.
Yes.
And, honestly, sleep, drink, and I know it's more than 3, but they go together. Sleep, drink, and breathe. I find, like the more that we breathe, the coherent breathing, I'm all about that because it aligns, your thoughts, your feelings. It calms you down and it's good for your skin. It's actually good for your skin. So,
I laugh because I always talk about sleep. And so like, this is not a paid endorsement about sleep. She said that on her own. I didn't know she was going to say that.
Yes. No, but like it's the basics. And I think like I'm all about longevity and like I have this, because I speak a lot and I have this program which is Skin to Soul. I think everything is connected, it's related.
Oh yeah.
And I do think the foundations of the sleep, the water that we drink, and how we breathe is tightly connected to everything.
Very tightly connected to it. So we're going to do a little speed round. So it's going to be an either or. Morning shower or night shower for your skin?
For the skin, well, I would say night shower because you can cleanse it once and it's done.
Hot water, friend or foe?
Foe.
Deplaning, yes or no?
Deeply, I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
Dermaplaning. So, like some people are taking the hair off of their hair off their face, like their little peach fuzz face.
Oh, don't do that. No, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm just old.
You're like, that's just gross. So no. most overrated skincare trend right now?
Collagen and vitamin C.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Again, another thing I did not pay her to say. Right now, I feel like I'm supposed to just eat, bathe, and like put on a collagen suit.
Yeah, no.
One ingredient you wish women would stop overusing, collagen? No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Collagen and vitamin C, they go together. We use them because, vitamin C is supposed to boost your collagen production. It doesn't. And collagen doesn't reach the layer you want it to reach. It's a protein. It's not bad, but it's a wasteful. Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
That doesn't have all the miracle cures that we've all read about on the socials.
No, we want to boost our collagen. And that being
Right.
said, to do that, make sure you have vitamin C in your plate.
Right.
But, yeah.
We're not going to be like mainlining it in a powder.
No.
This has been really great. I've learned a lot of things, and I'm really excited whenever like I have people like you that I'm like, I kind of like know a little bit, but like I walked away knowing like a lot more. And so I always ask all of my guests, like, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
See, I didn't think about this one.
It could
But
be
I will
anything.
say, I had a program I alluded to. It's called Skin to Soul that I developed. That connects the skin, the gut, evidently, the brain, the heart, our hormones,
Yeah.
our lungs. Anyway, skin to soul, like literally. And I've developed. I think something that's quite magical. It's called Now because, like we had a program around Eckhart Tolle, like he was in town and so we did that. And because he's all about the power of the now, I said, the now. And I was playing with this and I've built this framework, which is now notice, oxygen, breathe or care for, and W for wholeness, like align. And I think when we do that consciously, intentionally for our skin, for our overall health, for our life, it's magical.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and I love that because everything you just said was so simple, right? Like, I don't have to go out and buy anything. Everything you just did was like something I could start after listening to this episode. So, thank you for the simplicity that you brought. And again, I read, I did do a little cyber stalking on her, but everything she talked about was just, I like to bring guests who talk about simplicity because I ain't got time anymore.
And the energy, like when you get in front of the mirror at the end of the day and, I got to do all of this. Oh,
no. Hard pass. This has been great. Where can people find you on the socials?
On social, I have a link tree actually that has all my links.
Awesome.
So it's very easy. So I put everything that I find pertinent, educational programs, or just my newsletter. It's all there.
Awesome. And you guys, as you know, everything will always be available in the show notes so you guys can go out and reach out for our. And if there's anything that you heard today that you were like, this was like an aha, feel free to screenshot this and share it with us on the socials because we are always, you never know what resonates with people, and it really helps us to bring more of that information out to people. So I am very, very thankful for this. And this is like, I love this. Like midlife skin, like doesn't need any more fighting. It needs more and smarter support. And if you want more about adaptive skincare, like I said, follow Dr. Mimi's work. I've got all her links in the show notes. And if this episode made you rethink your routine or you have a skincare junkie in your life, do me a favor, share this with her so that maybe she won't be trying to look like a fetus by the time she's 60. All right. I will see you guys next week. And thank you again, Dr. Mimi.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.